Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerdarchist Ryan, and I am joined by...
I'm Ted.
And I'm Dave.
So today we are going to be talking about Theater of the Mind. I'm sure there's a fun acronym for that, versus minis and maps. So just a little discussion here on those two things.
Tom.
Or
no, it's TOTM is what people usually type.
Yeah, Totem.
Tom.
It's like totem.
So I know, way back in second edition, before that we ever really got into the grid system, we were always drawing things on paper.
Back when we were off the grid.
Back when we were off the grid, we were using D4s as us, and
there's actually a time that predates that where we didn't use those either.
That's
we
true.
evolved.
We evolved to the dice.
We evolved to using dice, and really, when we started out, it was completely Theater of the Mind. I think I ran the very first campaign, and then from there we moved into Steve's campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
And it really was when we moved into Steve's campaign that we realized
that there's advantages to mapping out where people are in relation to other people.
You're absolutely correct. Because I remember at one point in time, I was playing a mage, and I was always in the back unless I was casting my burning hands, and we were attacked by 9 ogres, and we were positioned in such a way that there should have been like a wall of fighters, and the ogre comes over and attacks me, and I'm like, how the heck did it get to me? I'm in the back,
Now, granted, in later editions, this is second edition. In later editions, you have reach, and more than likely, you can probably be hit anyway if you're, unless you're far back.
Right.
But that being said, when we in AD&D, there was no such thing, as reach per se.
Right.
Unless you were using like a polearm or something.
Right.
So we played, Theater of the Mind, and that example is the one that forever came up, and it was soon after that when I was running that I went out to like Home Depot, got a plastic a see-through piece of plastic, and drew a grid on it.
Yeah, with the T-square.
Yeah, with the T-square, and then it probably wasn't to any kind of scale or anything. We'd slap that on the table, and we'd use D6s and D4s.
Yep.
And Kit Kats left over from Halloween's past.
Those Kit Kats lasted
that
for years.
came later.
Yeah.
That was an evolution of the Kit Kat walls.
Yeah. Kit Kat walls, boundaries.
Mini Kit Kats, because regular size Kit Kats are too thick. It wouldn't work.
Yeah.
But mini Kit Kats were perfect for nice thick walls.
Great building material.
And then it also made a great practical joke for when
somebody new came to the table.
Somebody new came up. Oh, Kit Kats, I love them. Sure, knock yourself out.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. From like 5 years ago.
Yeah, it was classic, that first bite into the Kit Kat.
Oh, God.
Oh, man.
But we used the D4s for players, and we used the D6s for bad guys. We even went like, oh, well, this thing is bigger, so let's use a bigger D6,
Yeah, or, Fly, we'd take the Chessex clear dice boxes and put the monster or the player on top of that. But before that, we like you said, we did Theater of the Mind for a while, and for the most part it's okay. You just have those circumstances where
there's just too many arguments that I just rather avoid. And also, so Theater of the Mind, when you're playing an online game, unless you want to get into all kinds of technological, doing like Roll20 and all that kind of stuff. Like, Theater of the Mind is much more convenient in that instance, because it's just like, well, I mean, how much technological messing around with stuff do I really want to do, and bringing up maps and all that kind of stuff, versus let's just narrate this thing. That's a natural space for it to be.
And the other thing too, it depends on the DM. Like, if your DM is kind of dickish, then Theater of the Mind really is going to suck even more.
Because he's always going to, like, hack and slash the mage or whatever, the character that clearly is not going to be on the front line.
The Monster Lover DM is not a good mix with Theater of the Mind. Or that very adversarial Dungeon Master.
Yeah. The one who believes it literally is me versus them.
Yes.
As opposed to the storyteller who's there to provide a challenge and a story, and let the dice decide.
The other thing too is with third edition, the game became much more tactical as well.
Right.
So that's another reason why I feel like we probably moved to using a grid system, as well as a lot of other gamers.
Third edition also produced the line of the pre-painted D&D minis, which was a much more economical way of producing them, as opposed to say like the old Raul Partha metal miniatures that had to be assembled and painted.
Well, it's not even the price point and all that stuff, but the convenience and like the minis are a time sink if you're going to craft them. Like if you're going to mod them or paint them or whatever, it's a huge time sink that unless that's like your love and passion, you're not going to want to do it. So like these little pre-painted like plastic guys are perfect for you get your kobolds, your goblins, your orcs, and you're good to go. You get a little collection of stuff.
It's worth mentioning too that like even though I'm going to say 3.5 or third editions when really miniatures took off for tabletop gaming, it did pre-exist. I mean, there's a sub niche of gamers that construct their own terrains, their own dungeons, and their minis. Even before the tactical elements of third edition were introduced, before the 5-foot square was even talked about, there was guys out there. I'm sure like DM Scotty and some of those his cronies have been doing that stuff forever.
It's it's very likely.
And it always just amazes me. I'm like they build these elaborate dungeons and then they like cover them and then they like kind of like reveal them as the players.
It's like the Fog of War type of thing.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. I'm just like, man,
I would love to have the time and the ability to do that.
Not me. I want to play in the game. I want to have no parts in running it.
Yeah.
I just like it really is a time situation. I'd love to be able to say, okay, let's create all of these dungeon things so that when you're actually producing this thing, you can use your bits and bobs and have your pieces and put those descriptive elements right there so that they can see them, and then when they encounter them, they can ask questions, they can interact with it, as opposed to just you're in this dungeon and you Kit Kat wall it.
Yeah, I mean the thing is too with being able to literally see that, like when you're playing a rogue and you're like a rogue's always looking to break line of sight for stealth,
right?
And like like if you're in a natural environment or whatever, like there's actually this sort of like a little bit of a debacle with Andrew Armstrong's game for Dawnforge. Yeah, Dawnforge. Because like we were in a natural environment, I guess I don't know, like he thought that I shouldn't have been able to sneak at the time that I snuck or something. I don't know. But we were in a cavern and like you kind of always assumed that there's going to be like chunks of rock or whatever.
Well,
but maybe it was completely cleared out. Like there was not a. Maybe we're imagining two different scenarios.
Well, that's a good point with Theater of the Mind is everyone's going to imagine the same scenario differently.
Right.
Yeah.
In real life, at crime scenes,
people misremember details.
People always tell a different story and see things differently. And I've heard tons of times. I've heard people go, well, I've given a description and then I saw the video footage afterwards and realized I was completely wrong. And I don't know, I don't know how I got it wrong. Well, but it just happens.
You know what? Another thing, like, so this is kind of on the tangent of Theater of the Mind. When Ted's character Toll, like you described a giant crashing through the forest, right? Yes. So crashing to us meant it was charging at us and we're going to have to fight this thing. So Ted's character attacks a stone giant at like second level.
Yeah, we were second level or almost second level, whatever it was. It's like, and as Ryan says, Dave's words viewed it to me as aggressive, and I wanted to get the jump on it. So
and you did. You got the jump on it.
I got the jump on it. Ryan followed suit as well. Everyone else was like, "Oh my god, I'm terrified," and they backed off. The thing attacked. It kicked me into a tree. It hit Ryan with a club. Both of us dropped within the first round. And everybody else diplomacied it, and we moved on from there. But I was just dead.
Like your sternum was through the back of your chest, and yeah. So it just punted him, and yeah. So, but again, it was just like the imagining of the descriptor crashing. To some people, it's like, oh, it's crashing at me. That's an aggressive action. Whereas like crashing because it was just running through the forest.
It was wounded and it was fleeing from something else. And we didn't find this out until after
And be very afraid of the thing that a stone giant will run from.
Yeah. Well, and that's just it too. Like that's a matter of in-game perception as well as out-game perception. And in that instance, I took it as the DM as well. If this thing is like 16 foot tall running through the forest, that's crashing to me. Like
Yeah,
that's like a boulder coming down a mountain.
I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form that that Dave was wrong. Looking back, I was at that point in time, I was a bloodthirsty player. I was perceiving everything as how do I attack it? I've evolved as a player to let me figure out what this is first before I make the decision.
Well, here's the thing, though. Your character has way more information because they're physically there on site, like observing everything. So I almost feel like anymore, also as far as growth goes, as GM, if the player is going to make a bad decision, but it might be a bad decision based on not having the correct details.
Enough information.
I mean, there's like the fog of war where combat's actively going on, and it makes sense that people make bad decisions there. But if they have like a few seconds to like actually figure it out, and it's just for lack of details, like it might have been better on your part to like, well, he's not leveling a weapon at you or anything like that. He's out now running, but he's not running at you. Kind of thing.
I mean, I think Dave has evolved as a DM as well since then. I think at that point in time, he was, closer to the mindset of it's me versus you. He still was giving a story-driven game, but, Dave liked dropping and killing players. It's just who he was as a DM at that point in time.
I mean,
we are talking about 15 years ago.
There's just like that, a better game like might make room for sidebars of like, hey, this is kind of where things are now.
Absolutely agree.
Well, and this is like where you have the opportunity as a player and a DM to go back over and see how you've done things in the past and go, well, how can I do that same thing differently now? How would that scenario have played out this time? As the player would have asked for more information before dropping the attack die. As the DM, if they're dropping the attack die, might be okay. As you draw your blade to charge an attack, you notice that it already appears to be wounded, and it's
got a panicked look on its face.
Yeah, So the DM might supply other things, and you, as the DM, you might upend that with attack now if you like. And if they still drop the die, they still drop the die.
Then it's you've given them the chance to recognize what it is that you're providing, and if they still want to continue with their bad decision, then. By all means, let them.
The players should fear the GM expression. Are you sure you want to do that?
Yeah, that's it.
That's really.
That's it. Yeah, that fear of the mind, especially when the DM says, "Are you sure you want to do that?"
But
that should be the cue.
As a DM, feel free to throw that out there just to keep players on edge.
Yeah. You're hunting in the forest. You see a deer. Oh, I'm going to kill it and bring dinner back to the camp. Are you sure you want to do that?
Yeah.
No. Is it special? Is it sacred?
It's the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Is that your final answer?
Is that essentially that's what it is.
So I mean, even when we do get down to maps and minis, M&M, if you will, even still, you're probably not going to plot every single tree in detail and stuff like that, and you might want to leave some room for your players. Like, is there's some rubble I can hide behind, right, or something like that. Like, leave some room for it because you're not going to put every little shrubbery and
and that's where theater of the mind definitely comes in, because it literally saves time. If you have to stop for every kind of encounter or every room of a dungeon to sit there and lay it out, I find it it's absolutely tedious to just be like, okay, well, I'm going to make this 30 foot hallway that you have to walk down that doesn't have any traps, it doesn't have any monsters, but yet the players still have to walk through it, and I've created this dungeon, so I'm going to put it in there. That just becomes, ugh.
So our personal methodology is we use a combination,
ethos, if you will.
We use a combination of theater of the mind and minis. So before battle takes place, it's all theater of the mind. Once battle starts, it is theater of the mind overlaid on a battle grid with the minis.
Yeah, we just want positioning. Like, you just want relativity of where things are,
so that you know where the monsters are. And if somebody asks for a terrain piece, is there something that I can do there? Try to find a way to say yes. If it
makes sense.
Yeah, if it makes sense. If you're on a plane and someone's like, "Oh, is there a huge rock I can hide behind and totally block line of sight?" Well, chances are there's probably not, but if it makes sense, yeah, give it to them.
I was imagining airplane, and then there's a rock in the airplane. So yeah. So they were playing the Snakes on the Plane RPG.
But if you're going through, rocky caverns, and someone wants
Is there a rock?
is there a stalagmite that I can, get cover from? Yeah, there probably is. Give it to them.
Yeah, and also like area of effect spells, like because you have questions of like because I always do the thing like if I can get 3 to 4 foes per one party member, I'll usually take that gamble. But damn it, I want the information to be able to do that and act on it.
Right,
So,
and through their mind, that becomes a lot more difficult.
yeah. So
Or it's another question where I find like when I'm playing Theater of Mind, I always have to ask, well, how far away is it again? Or, and sometimes I'm asking the same question over and over again.
Because
you don't have a reference to look at.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So like sometimes, minis, it's just easier. You look, you see it, the information is instantaneous.
Yep.
So that's definitely one of the benefits.
You can count squares, counting squares.
So you can count squares as well.
And then drop some toothpicks on the table, and then instantly count and know how many are there too.
Maybe.
For our Rain Man friends.
Or vampires.
Or vampires?
So we got this one covered.
There's an OCD thing with vampires in the lore where they have to count things.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah.
All right, that's new to me.
It's a different one. Yeah.
So for more,
I've seen it in vampire movies.
So for more fun facts on vampires, when we're talking about Theater of the Mind and maps and minis, you can like, comment, subscribe, or watch other videos.
You can go over to nerdarchy.com where you can find Nerdarchy the store.
Or you can join the conversation over on Reddit.
Well, until next time,
stay nerdy.
Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerdarchist Ryan, and I am joined by...
I'm Ted.
And I'm Dave.
So today, we are going to be talking about Theater of the Mind.
To the dice.
We evolved to using dice. And really, when we started out, it was completely Theater of the Mind. I think I ran the very first campaign, and then from there, we moved into Steve's campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
And it really was when we moved into Steve's campaign.
I'm sure there's a fun acronym for that versus minis and maps. So just a little discussion here on those two things.
Tom. Or no, it's TOTM is what people usually type.
Yeah, Totem. Totem. It's like totem.
So I know, way back in second edition, before that we were ever really got into the grid system, we were always drawing things on paper.
Back when we were off the grid.
Back when we were off the grid, we were using D4s as us, and
there's actually a time that predates that where we didn't use those either.
That's
we
true.
evolved.
We evolved.
Realized
that there's advantages to
can
mapping
I
out where people are in relation to other people.
You're absolutely correct. Because I remember at one point in time, I was playing a mage, and I was always in the back unless I was casting my burning hands, and we were attacked by 9 ogres, and we were positioned in such a way that there should have been